The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. The fear of the Lord, this idea of honoring Him, having this reverence, this adoration for God is the beginning of wisdom, recognizing that He is the priority, He is the most significant, He is the source, He is the center. Starting with Him, you can never go wrong. The problem is that in our lives, we can start with Him in one area, but leave Him completely out of another area. One of my biggest struggles is honoring God in this area in my life, in this area having a complete lack of wisdom. We compartmentalize God.
It's really fun to look at these old pictures once you kind of know what they mean. You know, at least that's what I've discovered, is that once I kind of understand the underlying rationale for, I mean, someone worked hard on that. That's an engraving, right? They took a long time making that picture. They're serious about it. And when you understand what it means, you know, all those people, they're prostrate at the revelation of the law. It's like, well, no wonder. It's like, break the law and see what happens. Break the universal moral law, man, and see what happens. You know, I see people in that situation, well, as you all do all the time, perhaps me more than you, because I'm a clinical psychologist, you know, and if the people I'm seeing haven't broken the universal law, then you can well be sure that people around them have. It's no joke. Like, you make a mistake and things will go seriously wrong for you. And so it's no wonder that you'd be terrified at the revelation of the structure that governs our being. One of the things that's so remarkable about the Old Testament, this is another thing Nietzsche commented on. He was a real admirer of the Old Testament, not so much of the New Testament. He thought it was a sin for Europe to have glued the New Testament onto the Old Testament, because he thought the Old Testament was a really accurate representation of the phenomenology of being. It's like, stay awake, speak properly, be honest, or watch, because things will come your way that you just do not want to see at all. And it might not just be you, it might be everyone you know and everything about your culture that is demolished for generation after generation. It's like, stay awake and be careful. And I think that people only don't believe that when they're being hubristic. And I think that most people know that deep in their hearts. You know, when you get high on your horse, that happens fairly often. If you have any sense, you think, geez, I better be careful and tap myself down a fair bit, because if I get too puffed up, man, something's going to come along and take me out at the knees. And everyone knows that. Pride comes before a fall. It's like, if you have any, that's why it says in the Old Testament that fear of God is the beginning of wisdom. It's like, I've never, in all my years as a clinical psychologist, and this is something that really does terrify me, I have never seen anyone ever get away with anything at all, even once. You know, there's that old idea that God has a book, you know, and keeps track of everything in heaven. It's like, okay, you know, maybe it's not a book. Fine. But that is a really useful thing to think about, because, well, and maybe you disagree. Maybe you think people get away with things all the time. I tell you, I've never seen it. What I see instead is that thing happens, right? Someone twists the fabric of reality. And they do it successfully because it doesn't snap back at them that moment. And then like 2 years later, something unravels. And they get walloped and they think, oh my God, that's so unfair. And then we track it. It's like, well, what happened before that? This. Well, and then what? This. And then what? This. And then what? Oh, this. Oh, that's where it went wrong. It's, yeah, because you can't twist the fabric of reality without having it snap back. It doesn't work that way, and why would it? Because what are you going to do? Twist the fabric of reality? I don't think so. I think it's bigger than you. You know, and I think that one of the things that really tempts people is the idea that, well, I can get away with it. It's like, yeah, you try. You see how well that works. It's like you get away with nothing. And that is the beginning of wisdom. And it's something that deeply terrifies me. And, you know, ever since last September, when I came to more like broader public attention, one of the things, I've been terrified of making a mistake, because I certainly know I'm more than capable of making a mistake. And thank God so far, either I haven't made one or no one's found out about it. So, but it's like, you know, we walk on a very thin and narrow edge. And we're very lucky when things aren't degenerating into chaos around us or rapidly moving to far too much order. And it's not an easy thing to stay on that line. And you can tell when you're on that line, because things are deeply meaningful and engaging when you're on that line. But if you're not existentially terrified about the consequences of wavering off that, then you are truly not awake. So, and that's what I see in this picture, you know, it's like, look out, man, because there are rules, and if you break them, God help you.
I remember as a kid, my parents were heading out for a little bit of a mini vacation, and they brought in Oma to watch us as kids for the weekend. Now I remember as they were pulling out of the driveway, my brother and I looked at each other and we knew exactly what was coming next. We went to the one specific drawer that we knew where this slingshot was, and we grabbed the slingshot and we ran out to the garage, and we were so excited to see what the slingshot could do, and we grabbed some pebbles and we started shooting things, and before long we had actually shot out the windows in the garage. In the heat of the moment, didn't really think of anything. We were just having a blast and shooting these rocks through these windows. Don't know what we were thinking, but all I know is when my parents came home after the weekend, my dad looked at me, he looked at the windows, he looked at me again. And I remember feeling this incredible sense of fear. I knew that I had done wrong, and I knew that there was a consequence and that I was going to pay for that consequence dearly. That fear was very real. Now, the same fear concept is talked about actually in Proverbs 9 verses 10, where it says that the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. Many times we think of that, and we don't like to think of it because nobody wants to really tie in this element of fear to their relationship with God. It just doesn't make sense. But when we look at this concept of fear in light of what I experienced as a child, it wasn't that I was afraid of my dad. I looked at him and I was afraid of the consequence that he was going to have to play out in my life. It's the consequence of sin. It's the consequence of disobedience. There's a consequence that has to be paid. Evil is actually the beginning of wisdom. This is an incredibly crucial point to anyone's relationship with God our Father. Now, I know it's not a very popular thing to talk about, fear the Lord your God. And essentially what this means is the fear of the Lord, as it is the beginning of wisdom, also means to hate evil. There has to be something within each and every one of us that as much as we love God, there has to be equally as much within us that says we hate evil. It's not just enough to dislike evil. It's not just enough to be uncomfortable around sin. It has to go to the point where we hate that which is evil. Now, when we remove this fear element from our relationship with God, what we are actually doing is removing any and all authority for correction that He would have over our lives. Consequence does not exist anymore, and we begin to look at sin, we begin to look at evil, and instead of hating it, we begin to make excuses for it. What is wrong becomes right. What is right becomes wrong. Confusion will reign supreme. Now, this is not what God wants for His people. This is not the kind of relationship He wants for us to have with Him. When we understand what sin is and the simple fact that it is the barrier between relationship with God and relationship with humanity, that's what stands and that's what inhibits relationship. When we understand that, we will begin to hate it as He hates it.